happening? God damn it, what's happening? If you were looking at this face and listening to this voice, you were tuned in to the best kept secret in sports talk. I'm your friendly neighborhood Smoke, and you are officially on the hot seat. And what did we... Man, fuck all that. Florida State just beat the number 5 ranked team in the country. You know how good it feels to say that shit? Try it. Say it with me. Florida State just beat the number 5 ranked team in the country. Woo! You know what? If you're a Florida State fan, you deserve this moment. Yeah. If you've been sticking in there with Florida State this goddamn long after these last few years, this is your time. You deserve this shit. You know what? Waddle in it. Bask in it. Roll around in this fucking wind like a pig rolling around in filth. This is your moment, goddammit. You deserve it. So I'm not going to keep you long because shit, I ain't got a lot to talk about, man. Just celebrate the goddamn victory. But I know y'all come for the gospel, and the goddamn it's my job to give it to you. So ding, ding, class in session. Like I said, I'm not going to keep you long. Just want to talk about a few things. And sometimes when you see something go well, you want to know what caused it to go well, right? Sometimes you see things that don't go well, like what caused this to go wrong. So in rewatching the game a little bit, I just wanted to find out, how did Florida State really win this game? I got an answer for you. Y'all ready? Somebody give me a drum roll. Florida State made plays. That's it. There's the answer to your question. Florida State won the game because they made plays on both sides of the ball. And I don't mean plays that show up in the box score. I mean things that may go unseen to the naked eye. So let's take this play, for example. You got Notre Dame driving 4th and 1. And you even hear the announcer say it. You see how Robert Cooper just blows up the goddamn center because he does such a great job at anticipating the snap, right? It's not necessarily that play that should go recognized. Not saying that he shouldn't get his props. It's what you see Janarius Robinson do. He destroys that tackle. The reason why that's so important is after you see Janarius Robinson destroy that tackle, the first person Williams sees is Emmett Rice. Well, the reason why that's important is because if Janarius Robinson doesn't obliterate that goddamn tackle, Emmett Rice doesn't get through that gap as cleanly as he does. If he doesn't get to that gap as cleanly as he does, we're probably not even talking about this damn play. So what you see Amari Gaynor doing and what you see Emmett Rice doing is a clear example of people doing their job. That's winning football, first of all. First and foremost, and more importantly, that's winning football. Doing your fucking job. But that type of shit doesn't. What you see Janarius Robinson do doesn't necessarily get talked about. It's not in the fucking paper. Doesn't make Sports Center. But if he doesn't do what he did as well as he did, that play, I'm not gonna say it doesn't happen, but at that point during that split second, it's a 50-50 play. That's winning football. That's something we haven't been accustomed to over the last few weeks, right? Something we haven't been accustomed to over the last few years, if we're being honest. It's things like that that make you think, you know what? Maybe this team probably does get it. And since we're on the subject of this team, if a person gives you the opportunity to chastise them, but not necessarily chastise or ridicule them in public, if they give you the same opportunity to praise them in public, you should be fair and take that advantage. So to all the detractors, to all the naysayers and the people who said this wasn't the gig for Mike Norvell, I'm not saying you're right or you're wrong. What I am saying is this team is making traction, and the reason because of it is Mike Norvell. I'm not saying that he's earning his paycheck, so to speak, right? I'm not saying he is or he isn't the person for the job. But one thing you will religiously hear me say on this particular show is traction. Over the last 3 weeks, even considering the loss against Notre Dame, Florida State has showed competence. They've shown a little bit more discipline, and they've shown traction. The lies and I think they're called elite lies now, that were told the first 2 or 3 weeks of this season as it relates to this team being better coach were spread rampant across the FSU media. And that's just what they were. They were elite lies. This team was not well coached. Fast forward to right now, this team does look better coached. You look at the job, and you know what? This is a good segue into Adam Fuller. Because, I was going to say unfair. Now, all the criticism Adam Fuller has gotten up until that North Carolina game, he deserved every fucking bit of it. But even he made changes. To go out there and see Leonard Warren on the sideline, I was sold in. Shit, I was optimistic from that point on. And I spoke recently about him being reactive versus being proactive, right? He didn't need to see Leonard Warren out there again, fucking up, getting in the way, missing assignments, running around like he's fucking lost. He benched him for a true freshman. When you look at, hell, even what I saw from the scheme, I saw a lot of single high safety. We've been clamoring to see this team play more man and blitz more. We saw a lot of that. We've seen him have blitz from the edge more. We've been clamoring for that. You see the personnel changes a little bit. We've been clamoring for that, although I don't think they're done. And the one head scratch I probably had was seeing the Morgan on the field as fewer snaps as I did. The reason why I think that's the head scratch is not because one of our best players didn't play, it's because the message you're sending to the team. And this is what I mean by that. Up until the North Carolina game, you could probably say Morgan was the second best defensive player we had. So if you have a guy out there who's being consistent, who's playing hard and playing well, how does it look, or what does it say to the team when you, I'm not going to say necessarily bench their player, but you cut his snaps in half? If you are trying to change the culture, the one thing you are doing in the interim, and it's very difficult to do, is keep player morale at a high level. You want these kids to buy in. You want them to play at a high level. You want them to consume whatever it is that you're feeding to them, right? Well, it's kind of hard to do that when you're looking around at guys like him, who's, again, done all the dirty work. He's worked hard. He's reshaped his body. He's been consistent. He can get his snaps cut in half. That sends a funny message. But on the field, it worked, right? And he was on the field for some key plays. But, again, I still think he's being misused. I don't think he's being used properly. We can talk about that at a later date. But, again, he should be on the field wherever you put him. He still deserves a spot on the field. Quickly to address the cornerback issue, I heard you people are mean. Some of the shit y'all was saying about Akeem Dent just wasn't fucking nice. Miko Dawson as well. People really want another cornerback on the other side of Asante Samuel. I get it. I understand. I just think the cornerback y'all want is already on the field. You just can't play him at cornerback right now. I'll leave you to figure out who that is I'm talking about and exactly what it is I'm saying. But until Nas come back, I don't see the cornerback you need actually playing cornerback. Another person who deserves probably not an apology, but some praise because he's been destroyed in the media and by the fan base, and that's Marvin Wilson. The third and the fourth quarter is probably the best second half of football Marvin Wilson has played the entire season. And here's a guy who, as a matter of fact, I didn't even do a show last week, right? I wanted to devote as much time as I could to watching as much game as I could, as much game film as I could last season, and just try to throw it up against the wall of what I've seen this season, because I was just as perplexed as anybody else. I wanted to figure out what's different, what's wrong, so to speak. I almost was to the point of thinking maybe he's injured and we don't know it. The Marvin Wilson we saw last season has been absent the entire season, and I was really trying to figure out why. What I gather from most of it is it's a bad scheme fit. And I'm not going to get into the X's and O's because, again, I don't want to keep you all alone this evening, but he's not the same person because he's been asked to do something, I don't want to say entirely different from what he was asked to do last season, but he's been asked to do something way more this season than what he was last season. And To me, and I've said this before, Adam Fuller was pissing away his first round status, and he was totally, grossly misusing his skill set, right? So to see Marvin Wilson come out there, take ownership, because again, he does have a level of culpability because he has been inconsistent and he hasn't been playing with the amount of hustle you saw him play last season. For him to come out on national television against the number 5 ranked team in the country and play his ass off, that's commendable. This is his team. It's not Mike Norvell's team. He may be the face of the program, but that team belongs to Marvin Wilson. It has been for probably the last 2 seasons. If he plays like this, understand that he's able to hold everybody else to the same level of expectation he's holding himself to now, and he's got something to put behind that now. Because if we're seeing him play, I don't want to say poorly, but not playing up to par, trust me, the guys in that locker room see the same goddamn thing. So it was really, really good to see him come out there and play up to the level in which we know he can play at. I was telling a partner of mine earlier today that this was probably a season-saving win for Florida State. And here's what I mean by that. The reason why the loss to Georgia Tech was as bad as it was is not because you lost to probably the worst team in the conference. It's because of when you look at the winnable games on this schedule, that was definitely one you penciled in. So somewhere along the line, you were going to have to upset someone to get that win back. I don't think many people, honestly and truthfully, had North Carolina being that team. So when you look at everything leading up, going into Louisville 2-3 looks way better than going into Louisville 1-4. The reason why I said it is because you just lost your top recruit in Jennings, right? You didn't lose your top recruit in Jennings because Michigan just did something different, or they came in and swooped in and they were able to sell him some bullshit that you weren't. It's because you were losing. That's it. And on top of you losing, you looked pretty fucking bad at doing it. That's why you lost Jennings. If you go into Louisville 2-3 and you're able to leave at 500, what you're able to sell these recruits is vastly different from what you were able to sell these recruits prior to. Up until this week, it is super easy, or at least it was super easy, to negatively recruit Florida State. This week, you can't necessarily do that. This week, Florida State can probably contact a recruit or even a commit and say, hey, listen, we just beat the number 5 ranked team in the country. We just beat one of the hottest teams in America. We just beat one of the up-and-coming programs in the country. And we did it without even scoring in the second half. That's something to sell. That's something tangible. Because as much as we talk about the turnaround of Florida State, and much as we talk about how there needs to be an extraction of culture, there needs to be an infusion of talent. The best way to get talent, put some W's in the goddamn win column. I don't think people understand. And if they don't understand, they're probably neglecting to have a discussion about what losing does to a program. And you've heard me have this conversation before. The trickle-down effect losing has on the program. Well, in the same breath, I can also tell you what winning does. Winning cures everything. Winning makes you forget how bad Florida State looked. Losing is almost like a cancer, and it eats away at everything in its path. Winning, not only does it mask a whole lot of shit, not only does it ensure you keep your goddamn job, it makes things a lot easier when you're trying to sell. Because right now, Dabo Swinney, Nick Saban could sell ice to a nigga. They have a track record that exceeds them before they even walk in the fucking room. Because they win. Think about this. Think about everything that was said about Florida State after the Miami game. Take a second and think about how that team looked and what was said about Florida State after the Miami game. Think about the direction this team will be going in if they leave Louisville 3-3. I was one of the people who was saying this season was shot to hell. It was kaput. Cut off the goddamn lights. Put all this shit in the bag. Let's get ready for 2021. I was one of those same people. I was saying this season was dead and gone, right? People like myself will be able to have to eat crow because if they can, you turn this entire season around. Can anybody tell me honestly that at some point this season you saw Florida State at 500? Anybody? After the Miami game, people were talking about not only this being the worst team in college football, people were having discussions about, hey, listen, man, we're probably looking at a 2-win season. We're probably looking at a 3-win season. That would have been catastrophic for Florida State, and I mean catastrophic. But that's the road we were heading down. If Mike Norvell and that staff is able to say, hey, listen, over the last 4 weeks, not only have we've gotten back to 500, we have a head of steam going into the second half of the schedule. He'd be the greatest magician known to mankind. Really sit down and think about what you thought about Florida State after the Miami game, please. Just think about how bad that team looked after the first quarter of the Jacksonville State game. Think about it. This team couldn't do shit right. Not a motherfucking thing. They looked terrible in every facet of the game. You were hearing coaches say we need to find one thing we do well. They didn't even know what the fuck the team did well. If you can get this team on track, now you're not just playing for pride, right? You're not just looking for more victories. You actually have something to play for to win the damn game. Who'd have thought we'd be having this conversation this year? And since we are, as I said before, Mike Norvell deserves the tip of the hat because he's been faced with a lot of adversity. And I understand him trying to teach mental toughness and what you do when you face adversity. He never blinked. He never batted a fucking eye. He kept moving. So whether you like him or not, you have to respect what he's done. And whether you like him or not, you have to give him his roses now. And, right, given, fifth game of the season, still a long way to go. I'm not disputing that. I'm not neglecting any of that. But as it stands right now, Florida State just had the most important win. Florida State just had its biggest win they've had in 6 years. And, there's still some things we need to work out. Defensively, this is probably the best game we've seen Jaden Lawrence-Whitby play, right? Even that terrible angle he took on that long play down the sideline. When you're having a conversation about people who you destroy in public, let's praise them when they do well. This is his best game he's had this season. He's still not being utilized properly. If you go back to the show I did when I talked about the top 5 players Florida State needs to have play well on defense, he was one of them. He was ranked pretty high on that list. It's only 5 goddamn people. How could you be ranked low? But anyway, I brought in it wasn't a comparison. I mentioned how Clemson used Isaiah Simmons as a Swiss Army knife. Well, doing what you had Jaden Lawrence-Whitby do prior to the North Carolina game, all wrong. And people were shitting on him simply because they were saying he was a man without a position. Well, he does have a skill set for people who actually know anything about goddamn football. Make a position for him. Use his skill set. The closer to the line of scrimmage he is, the more effective he is. When you saw him take that angle on that run down the sideline, he looked like he was a linebacker trying to fill a hole or plug something in. It's almost as if he forgets that he's a fucking safety sometimes, right? The closer, and when you saw him making plays Saturday, he was closer to the field. He was close to the line of scrimmage. The things you see other teams attack Florida State, going up the seams and in the flat crossing routes, that should be his area, right? But instead, you see guys like DJ Lundy, Steven Dix. You see guys like even Amari Gaynor. That's not their forte. That's not part of their repertoire. That's not what they were brought here to Florida State to do. That should be something you have Jaden Lawrence-Whitby doing. If you go back and look at that last play when that kid dropped that pass and Florida State won the game, Lundy had that kid, and he released trying to attack. At some point or another, he's thinking that FSU has lost contain. It looks like Sam Howell's going to just start ripping it up the goddamn field. Because when I saw the kid drop the ball, the first thing that hit my mind was, why in the hell would he be so wide open at such a critical junction in the game? Hell, that was the game. Because Lundy let his ass go. And understand, I don't have an issue with that because he's a true freshman. This shit's going to happen. So everybody who's clamoring for the what do you call it, the youth movement, we got to have to take that shit, right? But had you had a seasoned veteran here and somebody who probably can run with whoever with that receiver stride for stride, somebody like a Jaden Lawrence would be, and not a 250-pound freshman linebacker, that would make more sense. And I'm not shitting on Lundy, because if we want Lundy and Steven Dix to become better, they come better with repetition. It's just not ideal to have those moments be taught when you got bullets flying by you when the game is on the line. But this is what you sign up for when you want a youth movement, like I said before. Again, I'm getting off topic. I digress. If you put Jaden Lawrence Woodby in those positions that you have these linebackers streaming across the guy from sideline to sideline, knowing that that's not their forte, what do you think is going to happen? We almost blew the game because of it. Like, think about that shit for a minute. Like, think about had that kid got their first down. Florida State was I don't want to say they were reeling at that moment, but I don't really think I was convinced, or I don't really think that anybody else was comfortable with what would have happened had they got a first down, right? But as always, man, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you coming here and tuning in. Please, please, please like the video, subscribe to this channel. Please share these videos with anybody who you think enjoy this type of content. If you got in the comments last week and I didn't get a chance to get with you, I apologize. Blame my head, not my heart. Been really busy, but I promise I got you this week, man. As always, you are officially off the hot seat. Y'all be good.